Hey everybody. So welcome to House Calls, the podcast. Matt, how are you doing tonight?
Tiger, I am doing A-okay. I just got out of the plunge. I
Oh,
ran for
nice.
a little bit already today, worked on my core. I'm just doing all things House Calls the podcast.
Okay. So recently we had an episode about the weighted vests, and I have been getting a ton of emails and texts and questions about the weighted vests, and they basically go into two things. The first thing is people are wondering, why, as an orthopedic surgeon, if I'm telling you that getting weight off is good for your joints, how can then putting weight on with the weighted vest make any sense?
Yep.
And I think you need to think of it as the extra weight that you are carrying around is 24/7. The weighted vest is just for your workout. So basically what that does, there's a tendency with the weighted vest that if you're kind of hefty or strong, either big or just fit and strong, it tends to thin you out a little bit or slim
Right.
you up a little bit. If you are skinny, it tends to strengthen you up a little bit. So building strength around a joint is never a bad thing. And you're not carrying that what is it, 15, 30, maybe 50 pounds around all the time. You're just doing it as your workout. So that's why it's not bad for you. If you have cartilage damage, if you don't have good agility and you're walking on uneven ground, then maybe you need to be careful. But in general, the weighted vest is still a great thing, and you don't need to worry about it tearing up your cartilage unless you have an injury. The
Got it.
second thing I'm getting is people are worried, oh, but what about bulging discs and things like that if you have bad back? And I saw something on Instagram and it was like an MRI tech saying, I MRI people all day long and they have bulging discs. Well, everybody middle age has bulging discs, and it's basically back to the weight on the joints. If you're walking with good posture, it's building strength in your core, and that is going farther towards helping you. So you start slow if you have a bad back. You build up your strength, and it's still good for you. And the other thing is with the weight is when you're walking with a weighted vest, combining that with a good diet, the hope is that you'll actually lose weight. So the 30 pounds to 50 pounds to 15 pounds, whatever it is you're wearing during your workout, the hope is that you're taking off the weight. So in the long run, over 24 hours, over a week, over a month, over a year, you're actually putting less pressure on your joints.
Got it. Got it. And again, you're only doing it when you're working out, so that's not a bad thing.
Yes. So
Got
tonight's guest is a great one, interesting, one of the uh, best guys I know. And the funny thing is we've gotten a lot of people who have been saying to us that we're having all these inspiring, almost too successful people on.
Yes.
And so we were like, okay, we hear you, but we're not going to listen to you. So at least not yet.
Kinda like my wife.
So we are interviewing Bryan Martin. And let's say Bryan has great curiosity for everything. He's a
Yep.
very interesting guy. He had a choice between Yale or jail in college. He went to Yale. He played two sports, was a two sport All American in soccer and lacrosse. He was busy academically. He met his wife, so he was out socially at Yale. Then he had a long career, very successful career. He worked for D.E. Shaw, and he was the founder and the CEO of Renewable investments there. On top of that, he had two boys, and he spent time with them. He spent time with his wife. He coached them in sports. He's huge into building community. He's an avid hunter. What doesn't he do? He reads. He hangs out with us. He does all these things. So he is kind of like a house calls poster child, leadership,
Absolutely.
mentoring, coaching, all these things. So what we're going to be talking about is that he's recently retired, which I think his retirement looks very different than just sitting around the pool all day reading Newsweek. So I really want to get into that about this phase of life. We'll get into the origin story on some other podcast, but that's what we're going to get into. So he's got some interesting hobbies that he's leaning into in retirement, but also I think we both know that this is not the classic retirement. He's still working.
No, not at all. And my first question is, why is he hanging out with us?
I don't know.
Um, and he's been doing it for years.
Because I'm a trophy husband.
That's why. Okay. All right. Well, here's Bryan Martin.
Hey, everybody. So welcome to House Calls, the podcast, and we are interviewing Bryan Martin. Now, as you know, we have had some technology troubles. Is that how we say it in the past? Most of it was me logging on. And we just did a little backroom discussion with Bryan for literally an hour and 5 minutes, which we called a podcast, but we didn't hit record. So here we are back with Bryan, and we've already talked about almost everything there is to talk about. And I'm not going to blame anybody, but I'm going to keep looking at that little number and see that it's marching on. And yes, we're at 40 seconds, but we have an hour and probably 10 minutes of gold that is never recorded.
So you're right, Ty. That stuff was never recorded, but I think it's fair to say that we did learn a lot about Bryan. We learned that he was trapped in the friend zone with his wife Catherine for a year and a half. You called Kevin Collinson a dork, and we learned a couple other things about your dad helping you with your homework. So
So,
that's stuff that's just never. It's just wasn't meant for the air. That's too bad.
so
I enjoyed our conversation, guys. It's nice to see
Yeah.
you again.
Bryan, can you stick up for me on the Kevin Collinson thing?
Yeah, I heard that coming from I heard that coming from the other host personally. But
Bryan, you're retired. Your ears don't work that well, but we'll get back to that.
I'm not getting in
But,
the middle of it.
all right.
So we have had a lot of guests on that have been very successful in life, and basically we've had some criticism and said people feel too much pressure because we're having all these successful people on. And Bryan is like the poster child for house calls. He's been a mentor, he's been a leader, he's been successful in sports, he's been successful in business, and now he's at a phase of his life where he is basically sort of retired, but I feel like it's a retirement that looks very different. So Matt, since Bryan's already told me, why don't you tell me about Bryan's passion for duck hunting?
He likes killing ducks. That's all I know. All I know. Supposedly he's pretty good at it, and he's a competitive guy, and he just wants to get better at everything he does. He doesn't do anything half-assed, and he wants to put he really likes to get into things, roll up his sleeves and understand, because he's got this great curiosity, and really, he gets this passion going, and his passions, it's interesting, they're driven by his desire to be the best, competitive nature, but he also likes bringing people along with him. And it's all about building communities and building friendships and building long lasting bonds around these duck hunting, skiing, boat, whatever it is. It's not an individual pursuit like Kevin Collinson's are.
I thought the Kevin Collin podcast was awesome. And the notion that you challenge yourself at least once a year with something you fail at or could fail at is like a totally inspiring, awesome thing. And Kevin definitely lives that.
Oh,
Most of mine are very different. It's something that I totally suck at. I'm totally terrible. And like duck hunting was, despite hunting for a lot of my, adult life, you can both attest, I couldn't hit a darn thing. Like I still can't call a duck. In that learning process and doing things where you're kind of humbled and that I really enjoy it, and doing it with other people, like you said, Matt, I just think is a blast.
so Bryan, now that you're in this semi-retirement phase, do you think, and I am putting you on the spot, do you think you'll try to find some of those like Kevin Collinson challenges? And I'm not saying you need to rebuild a Toyota, but I'm saying, something where there's a good possibility, 50% chance that you could fail.
I never really imagined that I was like, I didn't like pick a point to retire. I wasn't like, oh, I'm 58, it's time to retire. Retirement kind of happened to me. And I think as you get more senior, right, in life and you're running things, not everybody always agrees. And I happened to be in a spot where my board didn't agree with me, and it was agreed, time to move on. And so I don't know what retirement, like I didn't imagine that I'd retire. And I think like a lot of us, it's just an evolution of what you're doing next. I've retired. I tried to retire once very young when we sold the company and it looked like we had made a lot of money, and thought, oh, awesome, I can retire at X age. By the way, that story didn't end so well because the Lehman crisis, or the September 11th happened, the market crashed, and everything that we thought we had made ended up not being there. So, but before that happened, I had this other odd thing that my wife, Catherine, really liked her job and she didn't want to retire. She's like, well, you can retire. And then you start thinking about it, and you're like, well, wait a minute. Well, if you're at work and we can't travel, like, what am I going to do? Say, I don't know, it's not my problem. Maybe you go back to work. So this notion of having some purpose and having work, doing things in life. I was fortunate that I learned that at a very, very young age. That first retirement collapsed. So this is now my third or fourth try at it, and hobbies and purpose is definitely at the middle of it. But I think learning and curiosity and spending time with other people. Really, what I need is for all of you guys to retire too. So I'm going to be recruiting the retirement crowd as much as I can to spend time doing fun new things.
If we learn to hit record, this podcast is, we'll probably sign a pretty big deal with Spotify once we learn to hit that record button.
So
that
one thing Matt and I have talked about, and I got this from a book called Outlive by Peter Attia, is that when you're talking about your fitness, and I'm going to tie this to retirement, when you're talking about your fitness, Matt, you want to have a great last decade. You want to be able to do everything, all your goals physically in your last decade. And you really need to prepare for your last decade when you're our age. So at 50, whether your last decade is this decade or 60 or 70 or 80, you need to start preparing now. And as I started thinking about your situation and our situation, we're all relatively the same age. I do think you need to start thinking about retirement when you're in your 50s, not like your financial retirement. How are you going to spend your days? And I think I've seen some people do great, some people not do so great. I think your retirement's kind of a fake retirement because I think you're still gonna, whatever opportunity comes, you're gonna follow that opportunity. But I think your shield, your superpower, while you'll be good at retirement, is because you're curious about so many things that you'll still dream, you'll still research, you'll still try new things. Would you agree with that?
I hope so. Like, I think curiosity is one of the greatest gifts we have. And it takes energy. It takes, wondering about things, leaves you a little uncertain, but, I hope that's the case. But I also think I'm going to disagree a little with something that you just said, for me, at least. I kind of accept that as I get older, my body's going to change. My capabilities are going to change. I love skiing. I've done a lot of backcountry skiing and helicopter skiing, very challenging snowboarding, actually. And, I had my hip replaced and I was still doing some of that, still playing lacrosse. And I realized that each time I went, I was not getting better. I was just trying to hold on. And so for me, picking up something like duck hunting, which is also camaraderie, you're on a blind with friends, you have dinners and you enjoy time almost in a lodge now instead of in a chalet. To me, it's family time, as well. It's new. I'm terrible at it. In this duck season, I think I'm going to be better than last duck season. The only reason any ducks turned around when I called to them last year was they were like, what was that? That cannot be a duck. We got to go look at that. Right. So I think the getting better thing is just fun. Like, an upward trajectory is fun. So starting with something that I'm not great at, and other people who are, that you can learn from and interact with, that's what I really enjoy. And that's true with businesses too. That's true with the investments, I think. Like, I think it's true across professional life as well.
So back to the duck hunting, there is nothing more like the feeling of pregame, like college or high school sports, than duck hunting. And where you're all in there together, you're gearing up, you're suiting up. Gary comes in and gives the pep talk, gives the instructions, then you're having the post-game meal together. I mean, you feel like you're a team
sport.
Yeah. And then you're hanging out just on the bench, waiting to get in the game. And then you pop up and the action starts. I mean, it does feel like the closest thing we have to competitive sports.
There's an anxiety of failure and embarrassment in front of your friends. And, it's natural. I think those are healthy, good feelings. I go through most of my life. I won't use the word on the podcast because it'll probably get bleeped. but I tell people all the time, I go through life as an F up. I can F up anything. And, and, you know, I then prepare for how am I going to mess this up? How am I going to screw it up? So I got to not do this. I got to not do that. And that generates that anxiety is offset by when things go right and you actually accomplish what you were trying to do. The sense of joy and accomplishment is just much greater. And for me, duck hunting, new things requires starting with a humility of, oh my gosh, I'm going to be terrible at this. And it's not, for me, it's not the Kevin, I'm going to run a triathlon. Everybody has different drivers and different things. For me, it's the opposite. For me, it's sort of like, gosh, how do I not screw this thing up? I got to get better and not screw it up. I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to go out and learn about that thing that I'm just terrible at. Just so I don't embarrass myself.
But it's a humility, that drives you at the same time. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with, diving in and then trying to figure it out as well. It just depends on the person and their makeup and what motivates them and what keeps them going.
Matt, my first job came about from a massive failure. I was interviewing, I was playing lacrosse, and there was a little job anxiety. I guess it was during soccer season in the fall. And Fidelity Investments came to interview, and this guy named Frank Bracken, who was a football player, picked my name out of the resume because I was an athlete too. And so I get on the 8 o'clock slot, and he interviews me. He says, "Why Fidelity?" And I said, "Well, because I want to be in investment banking, but not in New York." I said, "Well, we're not an investment bank." Really? "Yeah, you're an investment bank." He's like, "No, we're not. We're a mutual fund. We're investors." And you don't know the difference, do you? And I was like, financial services? Yeah. Buzzword after buzzword. He's like, not only is this interview over, but you're not doing the other 3 interviews with the other 3 interviewers today. We're done. Go read this book called One Up on Wall Street with Peter Lynch. That's the guy you would have been working for if you actually prepared for this. And, maybe if you have questions or something, come see me and I'm happy to talk to you again. So I was walking home, saw it at a bookstore, picked it up. I was like, that's the guy. Read it, really liked it. I was like, wow, that's a really cool job. Got Catherine's car, drove up the next morning to Boston because, Mr. Bracken said to show up. I ended up getting a job out of it. It was a total screw up. It was a total mess up. It was horrible.
And Brian, what do I always tell you? You're like, Tyler likes to talk superheroes. Your superpower is serendipity.
Serendipity and just acknowledging.
Can we use words that everybody
I will
understands?
screw it up. And my I can't play basketball when I'm 75, so I better start learning something else now.
So I'm really curious, how did you have the confidence not to just crawl into a ball when you screw up the first one? And then how did you have the confidence to go up the next day or that quickly again?
I don't know if I'd call it confidence as much as ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
My parents definitely raised me with a comfort that I was neither lesser than or more than whoever's standing next to me, no matter what their stature and station was in life. We're all kind of together. And so it wasn't in my head like, oh, I can't have a conversation with Mr. Bracken. He said to come. I'm going to take him up on. I took him very literally. When I showed up in Boston, he was standing he was walking in as I was trying to get to the security guard, and he was like, "What are you doing here?" And I told him. He was like, "What a dumbass. Come on up and have a cup of coffee." And he didn't actually interview me. He had to go get on a conference call. And so his office mate assumed that I was there for an interview slate. So she interviewed me, and then she brought me to something else. And so it literally was just, as Matt said, serendipity. It just happened. And yeah, you have to do okay in those interviews. You had to have actually read the book and connected it. And they happened to ask me in the first 2 interviews about my dad's industry, which was insurance. They're like, wow, college kid understands insurance. which means I was listening to my dad when he talked about stuff. So there was a little bit of skill involved, I guess, or luck, or being prepared when that opportunity comes to actually do something.
You were doing the action. You by no means are you Mr. Magoo who just stepped in the fell into it. No, you definitely had the intelligence to present that correctly. So, but you did the hard. You did the work to get there. So you
Although,
made
Matt, I
your.
was going to name our next boat Magoo
Yeah.
because it is appropriate.
Well, I think that's something young people forget. I think sometimes they look at somebody like you who's been successful and they just assume that it went like this. They assume it was straight up, and they don't understand the ups and downs, and that your first interview did not go very well. You learned from your failure, you turned your failure into a success. And I think that's important to let people know that it wasn't always a rise. It was the up and
No,
down roller coaster.
it was like a surfer. You got to take a surfer's mentality, is what I think.
I love the server's mentality. How did you learn about the server's mentality,
Well,
Matt?
I used to surf a lot, but Ty, why don't you tell Brian what the surfer's mentality
What
is?
is the surfer's mentality, Ty?
So the surfer's mentality is you're living life high when you're on top of the wave. You love to surf, that's what you're doing, but you know it's going to come crashing down. It's going to end. And then you have to struggle. You have to struggle back out against the waves, and then you have to wait. So you're waiting for the wave. And some people enjoy the wait. They love sitting in the ocean, getting the sunshine. Other people are kind of impatient, but they know another wave's coming.
I love that. I love that.
Yes. Have
I,
you ever
I
heard that
actually think
before?
so much of what my boys' generation are hearing and seeing with this Instagram culture is you got to get to the right school and then get on the right path and blah, 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 blah. And if you're not on that path, it ain't going to happen. And I just don't think that's the way life unfolds for most people. There's a randomness. One of the great economists, I forget who, um, um, talked about cycles and markets and things as a random walk, and I think it is for most people. The company that was probably one of my most successful companies, Desiree, this renewable energy company, you know, built it from zero, 40% compound annual growth for 14 years, $4 billion company at the end. We literally put very little money in the beginning, very successful. When we started it, why we started it? Because this thing called the Lehman crisis happened and we were flat out of business. We had nothing to lose. Like it wasn't like it was this great Cinderella story. It was again, like your surfing analogy. You just got to sit there and wait and opportunities come, but then you got to be prepared a little bit when they come and have some skills to do something. And most importantly, recognize that there's a really good opportunity in front of you. When I read that book, One Up on Wall Street, I was like, I want to work for that guy. I want to do this. Oh my God. How do I do this? There's got to be that drive to do something with the opportunity. But
So,
hopefully the success side of duck hunting starts coming out soon. We're still in the learning phase.
Are you okay with doing things that you suck at? Like, are you pretty patient, or are you ultra competitive? Knowing that you've had great success in other areas, can you enjoy things you're not good at?
I think the competitiveness can give you some confidence that it's going to be okay if you fail, that you can wake up and it's Teddy Roosevelt's thing about the man in the arena.
Yeah.
It's the man in the arena that gets all the joy out of the blood, sweat, and tears of the fight. And whether the audience around understands it or not, it's like being in the arena is the reward. And I think I think there's a lot of merit to that. I mean, one of the things I love about Sherwood Forest, um, we were talking about this a little bit last week, Ty. How is it that the census, I think, says that there's 430 residents in Sherwood, right? I think it's higher, but that's what the U.S. Census says. How do we have like 5 professional lacrosse players, one of the best women's lacrosse coaches out there, a really well-known women's pro basketball player, tons of All-Americans out of that little place? And I think some of it comes from this notion that we have this summer camp that has everything to do with competitiveness on the one hand. You compete. You are ranked in horseshoes and ping pong and tennis and everything. But the first half of the summer is not competitive. The first half of the summer is participation trophy. There's no consequence to trying. Just show up and try. And that Sherwood Forest camp keeps this balance between participation trophy, which is important so that you're confident enough anybody can try it and learn. There's no consequence to it. But there are going to be some that want to actually compete and drive themselves a little further. And they are also prized. Both are simultaneously prized. I think that is really unique in the results of what we've seen of people able to come in and pick themselves up when failure happens and go do some pretty cool things. You look at medicine. The number of people have done amazing things in Sherwood with medicine. How does that little community attract all of this resilience? It's pretty cool. Somebody ought to study it.
Sounds like you got a new project, Bryan. Congratulations.
I think also competing, it's different because you're competing against your best friends, your cousins, you're a person you're going to have go to lunch with that morning, all those things. And it's very different. And the saying of the camp is the friends you make in summer, the score will soon be forgotten, but the friends you make in summer camp will be yours forever. And I have always said that's a lie. It's the score will never be forgotten, but the friends you make in summer camp will be yours forever. And I think that it is that component, learning to compete with your friends and learning you can stay friends, win or lose. You can knock somebody down and still help them back up. It builds a incredible camaraderie. Plus the fact that your teammates 1 year, like Matt and I would be teammates 1 year and then be going against each other the next year.
Yep.
It's a great environment.
Notion that there is something that everybody can be successful at and excel at. What does your shirt say? Trophy on the top. How appropriate is that? Trophy husband. See, you can be good at something.
And I did not buy this myself.
Oh, that's good.
So how do you, as you go into your retirement, which really means you're still busy, but you just have a little bit more free time, how do you keep those in the game feelings going? Especially because it can't be just, oh, you're going to play golf every day and you're going to take up these new sports. Our bodies are going to age. And I'm just very interested in people staying curious in life and enjoying retirement. How do you plan to fill the time?
Well, the first thing that I started doing right after I retired, I got drawn into this thing in Louisiana, which had been causing me to travel 3 to 4 days a week. And it's a little bit of an Aaron Rodgers retirement. So it hasn't gone great. So Aaron Rodgers thought he was going to go to the Jets and win a Super Bowl. It didn't quite work out that way. So humility is probably the first.
He is teaching everybody how to smoke a pipe.
Yes.
Well, that is important. That
Yes.
is important.
Yeah.
That's finding friends in low places. But I'm not sure how the retirement's going to go, and I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, and I'm kind of okay with that. But I do look around Sherwood, and I see like a lot of people who are retired and stimulated. And I won't name names, but the wonderful thing about a place like Sherwood is you do see people who were a generation older, 2 generations older than you, and you see Pete Smith running every day. And that's what I want my retirement to be, is that kind of involvement in the community, being in a learning phase and spending time with family. But it is weird getting up every day and wondering. I've never really had the luxury of wondering what I'm going to do today, because there's getting on an airplane or getting on a train or going to a meeting, and it is a little weird.
But Bryan, first off, I think that's the first, and this is episode 41, first Pete Smith recognition on the podcast. So Captain, welcome. Congratulations. That one was free. The next one will cost you.
Also, we should mention that you see him running, but then he goes to his boat. He does push-ups. I think he takes a nap and then he runs again.
Might, but that's neither here nor there. You know what? We're just try to be supportive of people.
So
okay?
without naming names, did you have any people that you worked with or maybe mentored you, and maybe were great at work, but then you noticed that they didn't do great with retirement, and you're like, okay, I'm not gonna make that mistake?
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot. My dad had a very traditional middle management career, worked 30, 35 years at Travelers Insurance, had a big retirement party, and there was like a day that retirement started, and he was golfing the next day. And he had his golf buddies and he had his routine. And, when you grew up in a period where you get a pension and you got a salary, um, that works. And I think I viewed that a lot of my life as that's retirement. And I'll look forward to that one day, but it wasn't really a tangible thing. I've seen that a lot of, for me, having more purpose than golfing every day, is something I'm going to need. And I think his whole generation was not generation, his whole cadre retired at the same time. So he was actually going golfing with the same guys he was driving to the office with.
Yeah.
And so it was a very natural transition that was almost a forced thing at a time. And like, we just don't have that. Like, everybody's going different places, doing different things. So the weirdest thing with retirement for me right now, Ty, is who are you doing it with? Catherine's still working. You're working. Matt, who am I retiring with? Matt's not going to go hunting with me.
Because you
We'll
guys
go
won't
running.
teach me.
But it's one of these things where society is sort of not at a point where it was, where you can sort of have a little bit of a path and a time and a place that you knew what was maybe going to happen.
So,
like what? And doctors, like, what are you going to retire? Like, how do you think about it?
well, I think about it all the time, and the reason is because I've seen doctors, particularly surgeons, who I don't think handled it well. They prepared financially, they didn't prepare mentally, and I think going 100 miles an hour down the highway and then all of a sudden just stopping and saying, "Okay, I'm gonna read this book, I'm gonna go on this vacation, and then I'm gonna play golf every day." Well, then your rotator cuffs starts hurting a little bit, your back starts hurting a little bit, and you're like, "Oh, I can only play golf twice a week." You gotta have non-physical hobbies. You gotta stay curious, and that's why I look at people and kind of take notes what they're doing in retirement and be like, okay, that's something I would want to do. But I think our generation is, like I said with you, is if I think if a cool opportunity comes in that is the right time commitment, you'd probably be interested. That's how I would be. Like, I don't think I can operate when I'm 80, but I think I could still coach or mentor or do something in my area of expertise, which is healthcare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the transition is, we talk a lot about wellness and healthcare on this podcast. The reason I mentioned the pipe smoking is because Matt and I are trying to make sure those people who think we're trying to make them superhuman and perfect, we're like, you don't have to be perfect. If pipe smoking relaxes you, get a pipe, smoke, look like Popeye or Gandalf or Huck Finn, whoever you want to look like, and sit in the woods and just watch the trees and smoke your pipe and relax.
Or eat Twizzlers in the woods. It's A-OK.
No, Twizzlers is not okay because that is sugar. I am anti-sugar. Pipe smoke does not go into your lungs. So according to this guy I know, it's not nearly as bad as cigar smoking.
Yeah, but it affects your breath way worse than Twizzlers.
Well, apparently it doesn't affect your breath like cigars do. I think I was lied to, or I was doing it wrong. I'm
Well, you
not sure
can't
which one.
smoke 4 pipes in a row, and
Yes.
then it does affect your cigar.
Now we know. Everything in moderation.
Yeah, pipe is not easy to smoke, actually. Like, there is a learning curve, and there is sort of an appreciation for the beauty of that hand-carved little piece of wood. It's, there's some cool stuff to learn about it, and so it's been fun.
How many IQ points does it raise if you read a book while you're smoking a pipe? So if I'm reading Endurance by Shackelford or whoever's the writer was, but I'm smoking a pipe while I do it.
It depends on which pipe.
More
if it's the Sherlock Holmes one that kind of does a loop at the bottom, it kind of goes down, then way smarter. If you're doing like a cord pipe, like
patches
patent,
on
a little short
your
one,
jacket,
not so much.
The pipe alone doesn't. And I think if there are different pipes for different people, and so certain of them, I'm not sure. I know for me, when I put the corncob pipe out there, it definitely lowers my IQ, and I go into some fun mode. Yeah.
So we are doing the the back to school reading challenge, trying to get people to read 10 minutes a day. And you have told us that an important book for you was Endurance, which I just mentioned. Can
Yeah.
you give us just a little why it means so much to you?
Yeah. So Endurance was, actually, you just heard One Up on Wall Street. It's a big one too. Um, Started my career with Peter Lynch, but Endurance, for me was interesting because, it's an action adventure book. So for a teenage boy, it's easy to read. It's not in the realm of great literature, but what I found was really, I was so interested in the story of Shackleton, who had gone to South Pole. His boat got trapped, and he had, let's say, 100 men on the boat, and they lived on the ice floes for a year and used one of the smaller boats on the ship to sail across the open sea and get everybody rescued. Nobody died. Everybody got back to England and was healthy. And the weird, there was a lot of really interesting stuff about it, but I then read another version of it from his first mate, and he was like, oh, Shackleton was an idiot. Like, he got us in all this trouble. He was a terrible leader. He wasn't a great leader. And there were like 10 different versions of this story, all from people who were there, who wrote their autobiography. And it was this great realization that the truth is often very complex. And by reading that book, it sort of gave me a framework for being an investor and being, in business and in life. That sometimes what you think you're seeing right in front of you is very different from what somebody else standing there looking at the same thing is seeing. And that there's a lot of gray zone in the world, and you have to have your perspective. You have to make a call. But maybe understanding what other views were, and what Endurance, the book, did was called a historiography. It took what they thought were all of the views and tried to put together what actually happened, and that ended up being the best-selling version of it. So that's why I like it, and I just liked it, but it also just gave me a format for how reality unfolds in a complex world.
And there's many different sides of even the truth.
Absolutely.
And you kind of sometimes in life you need to step back and try to see it all,
Yeah.
if that's even possible.
Yeah. Rarely is the truth simple. Rarely is what
Right.
actually happens simple.
Yeah.
And your truth
Yeah.
is different than my truth.
Yeah. Yeah. There is, it would be very easy to say, oh, well, so then any story goes. Well, that's not necessarily true either, because, Shackleton did factually get 100 people home from the South Pole on with a ship that was crusted in an ice floe. I'm betting the guy actually was a pretty good leader, no matter what the first mate says. Yet
Yeah.
the first mate's story better informs how Shackleton did it, and maybe some of the things that Shackleton wasn't aware of at the time, or some things that could have been done differently. It adds complexity and richness. I think it doesn't undermine this incredible thing that happened. It just adds richness to it. It adds more perspective.
So you when you've mentored people or being a leader in your industry, were you more of a I guess player's coach or more of a tough leader? Were you more of a put your arm around somebody and say, "Hey, let's keep moving forward," or were you more of a hard do your job Bill Belichick?
Uh, I um I never really considered myself a very good leader, honestly. Nor would I consider myself a great leader in sports. I was a goalie. There's only a goalie can't win a game in soccer. All you can do is lose a game. And so for me, that leadership style as a goalie, to build trust and teamwork with your defense, to know what each guy's strengths and weaknesses are, and know what you want to force the other team into. If they've got a really fast guy, then you don't want to let him go up the middle. You want to push him down the sides. Like having a strategy that maximizes what your team can do, that protects your weaknesses and exploits your strengths. Was kind of the way I did stuff, and that works really well with smaller companies. I had a tough time as companies get bigger
Uh-huh.
in doing that, because
Not as
Were you more of a team builder? Like you delegated and you found people that you trusted and you knew they could do the job? Or I'm taking this from like you do build community in your social life with like getting people together to go hunting or getting people to go do an activity. Do you have that same skill in your work life?
No, you remember that Christmas show that came on every year, the reindeer, the Rudolph the Red-Nosed
Yeah,
Reindeer with the big abominable snowman and the, like, almost clay creatures,
yeah.
and they built
Yukon
the land of
Cornelius.
misfit toys.
Yeah.
That's my leadership style right there. I build the land of misfit toys,
Uh-huh.
and we go off and do a mission together, and that's what I enjoy, and uh, good people, um, people that are curious and open and honest with a lot of drive, but may not be perfect.
Do you have a tendency to bring the same team back together?
I'm very fortunate that through a number of my companies that I've been involved with, a lot of the people do come back together.
Good.
Um, but a lot of those people also are the ones that are bringing new opportunities and saying, "Hey, I got this thing. You want to do it with me?" And it feels more like a peer type relationship than a boss mentor thing. I think we sort of mentor each other, which is very, my style is very not alpha male. And there are a lot of people that look in a company to an alpha male to just decide and take charge. And in that way, my leadership style is very weak. So I will find an alpha male. I often surround myself with an alpha male or two to, for those that need it, and we make a decision and go. And so I think being cognizant of what you're a good leader at and a bad leader at is is pretty important and humbling. Um,
Yeah,
And
that's equally as important as your style, right? The knowledge and the intelligence to be able to read the room and see what's the best strategy to kind of lead this group is very important.
and everybody's, what I talk about with a lot of the young people that I work with, some people don't really have some aptitude for leadership. They really want to be a really good staff person for somebody else, which is totally fine. And, most people do have some aptitude for leadership, but they got to find their voice. They got to find your way. And I literally use those words that, you now got to find your voice in this. You got to find your style and you got to test out some voices. And I always looked at other people, said, boy, I'd like to be like that or that or that, or I certainly don't want to be that. But ultimately you've got to sort of find your own voice, um, which takes a while.
Interesting.
what do you say to young people like in that situation? Are you telling them to hold off and learn the job first and just be in your learning phase and not think about leadership, or are you telling them to hone their leadership skills?
Um, so usually there is a phase, right out of school, which is, during your 20s, just work hard and learn. And the most important thing you can do is identify and surround yourself with some good people. Um, because good people will generate interesting learning and opportunities and skills. And when you're around, high quality people, however you want to define it, bosses, peers, you're a third year associate, hire good first year associates, surround yourself with really good people and learn and grind away. Your 20s are for grinding away and working hard. And that's really a message that a lot of people don't want to hear these days.
Yeah,
But I think if you're a doctor, you certainly did that, right? You
yeah.
knew that there was a period of time that you're just going to be jamming away and learning and working and grinding. And then there comes this point in like your late 20s, early 30s, where you actually understand what you're doing. You have some skills. You can actually start, you know, leading a little bit and generating some stuff. And that's when I think it's really important for somebody to grab and say, time for you to start finding your voice. Or,
Yeah.
what is your style? How do you want to be? How do you imagine yourself? Um,
Have you ever
a
seen
lot of people.
somebody maybe not be as successful as they could have been because they were afraid to surround themselves with strong people, like they had to be the alpha, so that actually in the long run hurt their career?
Yeah, most often I'd say it takes the form of like job hopping to, oh, well, this name is better than that name, so I'm going to move. And I think there's basically 3 reasons to leave a job. This is going to be great. Sorry, guys. You may want to edit this. But one, you just want to do something totally different. You're 3 years into your job as a 20-year-old, and you are a teacher, and you decide you want to be a fireman. Well, you got to leave your job and go be a fireman.
Okay.
The second one is you just don't believe in what your company or your group is doing. You've tried to do your best to tell people what you think they should be doing, but you just don't agree. You just can't get on board. You got to leave. You got to go someplace that you actually agree with the work that you're doing and you believe in it. And then the third is sometimes, somebody comes along and offers you an opportunity for advancement that's just not going to be available in your current role. And you need to leave and take that. I've done that once in my career, once only. I think a lot of times people take that third one and think they're doing it over and over and over, and they just keep going sideways.
Right.
And that has been the single biggest career blow up that I've seen. The most consistent one that I've seen, where really high flyers just keep job hopping to something next to them, and
And they're all lateral moves. Yeah.
They don't gut it out and try and help their organization get to the right answer or live with the power of their convictions after trying it and say, I just got to go somewhere that I actually do agree with what we're doing.
I've seen that a lot in surgery, not with surgeons, but with the people who work for the equipment companies, where they're at a gold standard company, working their way up. They're learning the industry, they're learning their skills, and they leave too soon to a company that's a higher ranking, meaning they're going to be the vice president or something, but it's a company that nobody uses, and it happens time after time. Instead of just staying in the industry and learning everything you can and building relationships and those kind of things.
Yep.
Yep.
It's every industry, man. I'm sure you've
Right.
seen.
Everybody's seen it.
Right.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So because of our recording fiasco, it's getting late.
Yes.
So we need to let Matt go to bed because he's got to get up at 5 o'clock. He's got a cold plunge, see his morning sunlight, do his yoga, eat his perfectly healthy breakfast. Now he's got to read endurance, smoke a pipe before he goes for his run, and then do his day job, then be a family man, then edit the podcast, plan his next podcast. So I want to finish it on, what is your plan tomorrow? Like, what's your wake up plan? What's your morning look like? What does your day look like?
Are you posting the podcast tomorrow? Because I'll analyze it and understand what I should do better.
It won't be till next week.
It was not that. Tomorrow, I'm actually going to look at trees with Catherine.
Ooh.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're really grasping it, getting after it. I love it.
Yeah. And then I'm probably doing something with the boat tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay. So as you learn more from failure than success. What I learned from our talking for an hour and 15 minutes and losing all that material was I struggled with bringing up subjects that I was like, did we do it in this recorded session or the hour and 15 minutes that wasn't recorded at all? And then my mind started getting fuzzy. And then you brought up endurance. And I'm like, how does like the big podcasters go 2 hours and 30 minutes? And then I'm like, is that funny feeling in my head? Is that callus on my brain? Like, what is going on here?
All right. You need to go to bed.
Well,
you really
thank you guys. This is my first podcast and I have enjoyed it. And
we are going to have you back to discuss the Python diet, because I think that could be your retirement thing that changes
that could
the
really
world.
get it going.
It's going to be huge.
Yeah.
It's going to be huge.
Do you want to briefly say what the Python diet is? Just briefly. So people can think about it. Like when you told me, you said, I just want you to think about it. We're not going to comment, and we'll comment the next time we have you back.
I'm not sure that this is something that I would propose for other people because I've just stumbled on it. But in my travel life, access to food can be fairly hard. And particularly the last 6 months in Louisiana, the food is really good, and I've been going down there a lot. Well, I'm at a plant where I can't eat during the day a lot of times, so I just started having one big meal with really high quality food um, once a day, and I started feeling better. So I started thinking, geez, that's just like a python. A python goes into the woods and or jungles, and it gets a pig, and it lasts for like a week. And then it waits until it's hungry. And when it's hungry, it can't always get the pig right away. So it goes and it hunts and it hunts and it hunts, and it finally finds one and it survives. It's good. And so it's sort of a eat high quality stuff less often, but don't worry about exactly when you're hungry, but you know, go. Now, in my case though, Ty, a python does also eat like mice and squirrels occasionally. So there's a little snacking involved. It's not just there are days that there's a three meal day, but generally it's like, yeah.
There is a lot of different ways to nourish yourself, and there's a lot of ways out there, and it's finding what works for you. And
That's
the
right.
Python diet, you said you're eating healthy food, you're eating once a day. So basically you are fasting a lot,
Yes.
but also you're showing yourself that you don't need that sometimes you don't need to eat all day long like some people do. And sometimes people eat just because they're bored or they got something else
I'm
going
hungry
on.
all day. I've just gotten really comfortable that the hunger is okay.
Right.
Because I'm going to have a big meal that's going to taste really good at some point. So I'm happier being hungry because I know I'm on the Python diet. I'm going to eat something. I'm going to eat a lot that's really good later.
And isn't that why every major religion like has fasting as part of it? Is the self-discipline to wait till you eat the great meal at the end of the day? I mean, isn't that one of the
I think
things?
so.
I'm not sure I can actually promote that much self-discipline because the Waldrons and my wife and kids will call me on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mostly discipline. Pretty
Mostly
good discipline.
All right, we
All right,
got to
bud.
go to bed. It is late. Is it
All
midnight
right,
yet,
guys.
Matt?
Thank you.
I think it's Thursday.
I'm going to have a Python meal right now.
Okay.
Oh my God.